So here is an example of what's going on when it comes to the real housing crisis that so many of us have dealt with, and especially down here in Florida, where it has become a crisis of epic proportions. Corporate housing buying up all of these properties, and lo and behold, it's now being addressed by the FTC, and hopefully something positive will come of it. But keep in mind, and this is very important, it has already been made very clear by, and specifically Reid Hoffman, who is one of Kamala Harris's biggest benefactors, that if she wins the presidency, they want Lina Khan out as the head of the FTC. And you know who else recently said they want her out? Mr. Mark Cuban, who's supposedly the good billionaire. Here we go.
Investigation found serious problems in how the company was maintaining its properties. Mold, rat feces, exposed wire.
There was dripping water in the garage right in front of the door to the house. We had a water pipe that was about to burst.
If you rent a single-family home, there's an increasingly larger chance that your landlord is a new breed of homeowner, Wall Street.
We get millions of complaints every year from people reporting all sorts of abuses they are facing in their everyday life. And one of the things we've heard in the housing sector is that renters are facing a lot of abuses today.
During its investigation, the FTC uncovered that Invitation Homes has engaged in deceptive and exploitative business practices for years.
We alleged, I think, 4 really serious law violations in particular. And what we alleged is that the company saddled renters with junk fees, hidden fees that they didn't know would be included in their rent. We alleged that the company skimmed off people's security deposits systematically, withholding millions of dollars from renters. We alleged that the company failed to maintain their properties and often ignored maintenance requests from renters.
So I can tell you this was one of the biggest issues that I had renting a home from Invitation Homes. Back when Jen ran for Congress the first time, this was also doubling as the campaign headquarters. If there was ever a maintenance issue in the home, you have to fix it yourself. And you have to pay for it because they're not going to help you. Absolute nightmare. This is one example of the scam that is corporate housing in this country. And shame on anybody who sells it to them. You can always sell to somebody else. You don't have to sell it to corporate housing conglomerates like Invitation Homes. And you know who oversees a lot of this? BlackRock and Blackstone. Not a surprise. We'll continue.
Renters, and we allege that during the height of the COVID pandemic, the company steered people away from federal eviction protections and initiated eviction actions in spite of those protections. It was the CEO of Invitation Homes who said we need to juice this hog. We need to squeeze renters for all of these fees. This was not a low-level employee. This was a deliberate corporate strategy that started at the top.
And that wasn't the only corporate strategy to juice earnings.
And we work with you to schedule routine maintenance visits twice a year.
And 24/7 emergency maintenance telephone support is available as well.
No, it isn't. No, it's not. It is not available. They want you to think it is. I just hope enough people are starting to see through the bullshit. That's what I hope.
Invitation Homes promised quality inspections and constant support. In reality, the company practiced what the FTC found to be a deliberate pattern of ignoring maintenance requests, putting the health and safety of their renters at risk.
I had reported this, and you can see like it's cracking across the ceiling.
Water damage in here.
For those who are wronged or exploited by Invitation Homes, an urgent question remains. When will the FTC settlement reach their bank accounts?
We are not keeping that $48 million. That money is going back to consumers. We administer redress ourselves. We're not using a third-party contractor. And the reason we do that is we want to make sure every dime that we can get out the door back to renters, we will get out the door out to renters.
This is one of the only truly positive aspects of the Biden administration. This is a direct result of the changes at the FTC that almost assuredly will change for the worse under Trump, and it will change for the worse under Kamala. Now, for whatever reason, this just happened to be a bump in the road, But what ultimately ends up happening a lot of times is that when something positive like this for consumers starts to hit the surface, what ends up happening in a broken economic system? They just spend a lot more money on lobbying and on electing representatives who will do their bidding. That's what it's about. Well, we got a problem now. We're going to have to deal with it. Here's your 100 million. Lina Khan has to go. And we're going to start over again. And if you don't do what we say, we'll make sure that Trump gets in and he'll do what we say. That's basically how they sell it. And ultimately, they're going to get what they want. So I can only hope in the interim that they deliver as much positive for the consumer than for the corporate landlord. But that remains to be seen.
As corporate landlords increasingly control more of the housing market, renters have been saddled with higher rents and worsening conditions.
20, 30 years ago, your landlord might have lived upstairs. They might have lived next door. You probably knew them. In 2022, almost a third of single-family homes weren't sold to, John and Nancy down the street. They were sold to institutional investors.
And there's your statistic right there. At the 2022 peak, more than 1 in every 4 single-family homes in this country was sold to a corporate landlord. They say that BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard will own 60% of the single-family homes in this country by the end of the decade, at the rate we're moving at right now. And if that's not enough, who's to say that regardless of who wins the presidency, that we do not have a very dangerous recession that could be looming over the mountaintop as soon as the election is over? And then the same problem can get even worse. And then the corporate landlords, because there are really no restrictions, will come in and buy up those homes. And then as soon as they could get Lina Khan out and they could put a more corporate-friendly head of the FTC in, they'll just turn a blind eye and look the other way. This is a very dangerous time. And this is the type of issue that should be talked about. But notice, not a one of them is addressing it. Trump's not going to talk about it. Kamala's not going to talk about it. Maybe Joel Stein will talk about it. But I really haven't heard it. I heard it from RFK. RFK made a point to talk about the single-family home corporate landlord takeover in this country. That was the best part of his presidential run, bar none.